You're seeing a lot of tech YouTubers at CES right now. You're seeing everyone report on that. You probably deserve an explanation as to why I'm not there. So it's not one particular reason that I'm not at CES right now. It's a bunch of little things and a couple of slightly larger things, but there's just some things I've noticed about CES. And yes, before I even start the video, I'm sure we can just all get the comments out right now. Drew, you don't care about CES because Apple doesn't do anything there. Okay, you're great. You're very clever. You wrote that yourself. That's great. Just go ahead and comment that. But if we think a little bit deeper about that, you do have to kind of admit my channel being the Apple Sheep channel, meaning that the videos I make reporting on other things, videos that are not about the iPhone, videos that are not about the Apple's ecosystem, typically don't perform as well, which is why, yeah, maybe because I've always been kind of a giant Apple fanboy, when I hear that a bunch of other companies, except for Apple, are all trying to introduce new stuff at one show in particular, I don't get terribly excited, no, because usually the things I see at CES I end up not getting. Now, I know I've only been a full-time tech YouTuber for a few months now, but the fact still remains that I've been watching CES coverage for years and years and years. As long as I was ever following tech stuff on YouTube, I can recall watching what was going on at CES. I thought it was like, oh, okay, this is big collection of companies coming together to unveil all their new stuff. This is really cool. So I was not a tech journalist or tech YouTuber of any kind, but I was still curious to see what was coming out. So of course I read about it, and I still do, because basically all of the tech media sites out there that like to report on technology all go there. Most of the YouTubers go there and all like to talk about what they've seen. So yeah, you basically have no choice. You kind of have to follow that story. But what I've noticed over the years is that a lot of what they introduced is not really something we end up seeing in the main market. Sometimes it does. I know that does not apply 100% of the time, but I just found that a lot of the time it's companies who have developed something in their R&D department and they want to show it off to the public, but they're not going to sell it, and they're not even giving you a release date or a price point or what this will do for you sometime down the road, which to me just seems kind of like the equivalent of tech companies like flexing at you, like, look, we can make this, oh, we can make that. And my response has always been like, cool, like, how much is it? When's that coming out? And they're always like, oh, we don't know yet. And this is why I make that joke on Twitter about calling it the Concept Electronics Show. Originally, for those who don't know, it stands for Consumer Electronics Show, which to me, if you're making a show that is basically for consumers, it really shouldn't be about things that aren't out yet or things that are just barely possible. It should really be more about stuff that you're going to see in a few upcoming months. Now, for instance, recently I talked about that Project Linda. It's like, look at what our R&D department is working on. Look at what the possibilities have for the Razr phone in the future, but then you ask for price, they can't tell you, and then you ask for a release date, they can't tell you. And then of course all the tech YouTubers talking about it are saying like, this is just a prototype, this isn't how it's actually going to be, which personally I'm like, why do we care? Why do we need to hear about these things? Why do we need to watch these things if they're not ready yet? This means that the end product could be entirely separate from what we're looking at right now. So I guess the idea behind CES is basically that in January, not a lot of tech products are released. You know, the holidays are just over. In fact, even Google ad revenue goes down in January just because less people are buying things. So perhaps for the sake of giving the media and lots of news articles and tech journalists out there to have something to report on, they'll decide, hey, January's a pretty dead month. Let's show everyone what we're working on, but not tell them if it's actually going to become available or how much it's going to cost you when it does come out. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to tell anyone out there that they shouldn't go or that if I was invited, I would not go. The reason I didn't go is personally just because I'm so busy right now working on videos for Tailosive Tech and videos on other channels, as well as Project 2X, which the reveal for Project 2X is coming very, very soon. I can say I think it's going to be very exciting, but still, I'm very, very busy. But the issue I think a lot of tech journalists and YouTubers deal with when they go to CES is that you had to rent out these hotel rooms, you had to fly there, you had to take all this time out of your schedule so that you can report on whatever's coming out there, and what happens is you end up kind of becoming a little desperate to find something interesting, because when you're going there, you don't know what's going to be announced, you don't have exclusive sneak peek access, you're just hoping something cool is going to happen. And what I'd be worried about if I spent all that money to travel there and rent out hotel rooms and pay for tickets and pay for merch and stuff like that, just making a whole trip out of it, is that I'm not exactly sure that there would be stuff to talk about that you guys would be too excited for, especially given that I'm an Apple sheep primarily, meaning that most of my fan base is interested in news and reports about Apple, not everyone else. So for instance, one thing I see a lot of people talking about is the HTC Vive Pro. I thought about doing an entire video on it, but I don't think my thoughts would take up a whole video. So it's like, it's cool that they're upping the resolution and everything, and that they're trying out this wireless attachment that sadly obviously didn't work correctly in the demo, but Apple has mistakes too. I don't hold it against them. But I'm kind of like, you know, VR is not something I'm seeing a ton of people invest in. In fact, more and more people are saying that VR is something you go to and visit, not something you put in your home. And I'm confused as to why too HTC thought that what the VR market truly needed was even more pros. We need to make this even more expensive and make the computer that powers it require even more GPU and CPU. I was like, I think you guys are going in the wrong direction. I think the better thing to do is make VR cheaper and more affordable and work on smaller rigs so that if you want people to buy into VR and put it in their house, it's a bit more affordable. Because right now, VR is still here. I'm not saying it's going anywhere. It's not gonna die. It's always going to be there, but still not tremendously popular, at least for the people I know and for the people I've seen. It's not something everyone's buying into. It's just too pricey, too impractical, and too socially awkward. And I feel like instead of tackling those issues they're having with VR, they're deciding to just upscale what they already have to higher resolutions that requires even more investment, more money, and I feel like not a lot of people are going to buy into that. I'm impressed that they are working on a wireless method because I do think that's a big problem with VR, but still, you make this even more expensive, it's going to be a lot harder to reach for many of the consumer market out there. But then of course we had like a whole day where people just talked about how this new smart appliance can open wine bottles without popping the cork, and it's like, great, is that something all of us tech people care about, or is that just something new and exciting so we're all gonna talk about that now? Like, I don't know. I feel like what happens is all these media outlets and tech YouTubers and journalists are just like, okay, everyone's at CES, we have to go to CES, we need to report on it, and then they get there and the companies are like, we made a 150-inch TV that's micro LED. It's like, can that even fit on most people's walls? Well, no. How much is that TV? It's not for sale. And is it ever going to be for sale? Maybe, but probably not. Okay, great, thank you. Again, not really for consumers, more of a conceptual way of giant tech companies to be like, yeah, look at what we're capable of. Now we can have 8K screens. 8K is possible. Try out these new headphones. They don't let audio fall out of them. Oh, that's kind of interesting. How much are they? $2,000 to $3,000, but we're not actually gonna tell you. Oh God, wow, that's a lot for headphones. Probably not gonna buy those. That's not something for consumers. That's something for audiophiles. So again, I hate to kind of critique CES because I'm not saying that it's a complete waste of time. I'm not saying I'll never go there. I'm just saying as of right now, because of life circumstances, this is why I'm not there. It's not something I'm ready to jump into yet. And also, it's not something I feel guilty about. I don't feel like I'm missing out on a ton because for the past few years, I've been watching CES and watching all the stuff been announced. It's not really been things I feel like I need to be present to review and talk about because it sounds like for the most part at CES, I'd be waiting in line all day and get to try out these prototypes for 10 minutes and then I'd have to go away. All that money, all that time I'd have to spend on the road and renting out spaces and waiting in line and traffic and tickets, I just don't think it would be worth it to me. So I apologize. I know a lot of you are expecting me to create content on a daily basis, but I'm hoping that because I assume I'm not the only tech YouTuber you watch, you guys watch all kinds of stuff, you can have those other YouTubers that are reporting all the cool stuff happening at CES. They're still there. And hopefully when you come back to Tailosive Tech, you can get a different perspective on something. You don't have to see my opinion on the same exact thing that every single other YouTuber's talking about, unless I have a controversial opinion on it, like Project Linda. Anywho, I hope you can forgive me for that. Maybe one day I'll make it to CES, but it's not gonna be this year. And overall, just reading about and watching about all the things coming out, I'm kind of about it. It doesn't seem like something I'm like, dang, I wish I was there for that. Like, remember when all the power went out? That sounded like fun. It kind of sounds terrifying to be in like a giant room like that, where all the TVs are being demoed and then all the power goes out. Sounds kind of scary, but I guess that's just what happens. Either way, I'm curious to hear what your guys' favorite thing about CES is. Let me know your opinions on it in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.